Hey everyone, this is a video tutorial on writing your theme analysis research paper, and I'm providing you with a modeled example. And as you notice, I also have it annotated with parts that I think will be most helpful to you. Based on my experience with students last year, I think the most difficult part was incorporating other sources to create an argument about the theme of the work, and knowing where to fit in those other sources and how to do that. And the other issue was how to avoid plot summary and to actually have analysis of the theme. And probably the third issue, and I think this came down to laziness, is that students didn't actually have specific text evidence from the book they were reading because they just didn't want to go back and look at it. So that's just laziness. Um, okay, so I'm also gonna talk about a few MLA issues too, just so we have a review of that and we make sure we're doing the right thing with MLA. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make sure you have your MLA set up with your headers. So at the top page, you're going to insert, and make sure you do it through here. You're going to insert page numbers. You're going to make sure that all your page numbers are in the top right-hand corner, and then you're going to add your last name there. And then also make sure that you change your font here to Times New Roman and that you have a consistent font, because I think the default is for Google Docs to use a different font. Once you change it on the first page, you don't have to worry about changing it in the rest. And then you're going to have your header over here with your name, my name, which ends up being really creepy when I'm writing a paper for myself. Then you're going to have the course number. You're going to have the date here as the day, the month, and then the year. Then you're going to have a title for your paper. Mine is called Boats Against the Current, Repeating the Past in the Great Gatsby. And you're going to center this, but you are not going to add any extra spaces between your header here, your title here, and then your paper here. So just keep it double space, but not extra spaces there. Okay, you're going to start your introduction paragraph with an attention grabber. Mine is pretty long. Mine included the campaign slogan from President Trump's campaign, and then the campaign slogan from Warren G. Harding's campaign, which I think are similar. And I think I talked about this a little bit last year, but it kind of fit in really well with my theme statement that I was talking about. But this is my attention grabber. Then I move on to talk to connect this to the Great Gatsby, and then I have my thesis statement here. And this is my thesis statement. Rather than praising nostalgia for the past, Fitzgerald develops the theme that it is a hopeless yet romantic dream to try to repeat the past in his novel The Great Gatsby. Notice that I'm very specific about what the theme is, and I mentioned that Fitzgerald is developing this theme. That's really the heart of my argument here, is that Fitzgerald as an author is being really intentional to develop this theme. And then I preview my main points. This essay will explore how Fitzgerald uses the plot structure, character development, and motifs of the novel to reflect on the futility of attempting to repeat the past. Okay, so I connect this, and I'm talking about specific literary devices that he's using in his book to develop this theme. Okay, then I have a paragraph about the historical context that the story was written, and you can just take a look at that. Remember, for MLA format, you're going to have your sentence, then you're going to have a parentheses, the author's last name, the page number, parentheses, and then a period. Okay, and you're going to have a period. You're not going to put any end punctuation here unless you have a direct quotation that uses a question mark or an exclamation point. If your direct quotation uses a period, then you're going to get rid of the period, just use your quotation mark, and then you're going to put your period at the end here. Okay, in addition to that, I'm really making use of my transition phrases here, and I think I've provided you with a cheat sheet for transition phrases on the prompt paper, but you have the not only that as a good transition here. And I'm following here, I have a note here. I'm following a modified version of the Toulmin method where I keep using evidence and then I have explanation and analysis going on throughout my paragraphs. I continue with the historical context here by talking about the mixed reviews that the book got and how it has currently one of the most read books in high schools. Um, one of my sources here, so both of my sources here, Mention and Clark, are both from websites that don't have page numbers, so I don't need to have page numbers here. Um, and this one here comes from an article that doesn't have an author or a page number. It's an online article from National Public Radio. And so I am actually just including the first couple words. It's a really long title. So I'm just including the first couple words in quotation marks of the article title as a way of citing that. Okay, then I am going on to talk about a plot summary. And here I am just including some of the main points of the story. Notice how short this is. The novel is really, really not that long, but at the same time, I need to make sure that my summary of the story is not what is taking up a lot of space in my paper. We're dealing with a 6-page paper, so that's actually pretty short, and we really want to focus on our analysis of the theme. So we're just providing enough information to sort of help our reader follow through what's going on in the story. Okay, this is where I start getting into my analysis, and I'm actually going to read this to some of the analysis to you and explain what I'm doing, because I think this is the trickiest part of the paper and the part that I think everyone's going to find particularly challenging. This is where I get into my theme analysis. Okay. I'm really sorry for all the yawning. It is midnight. I don't know if you can see that on my screen. And again, this is the only time I can get work done when my kids are asleep, which means that I'm half asleep. Okay, so here's my first paragraph of analysis of the theme. While the plot of the novel is often connected to themes about dreams, or more specifically, the American dream, The Great Gatsby is also a novel about time. And this is where I'm connecting my previous paragraph. I'm kind of transitioning into a new section of the paper, but then I'm also really focusing here on my theme statement and what the theme is. Even though he avoids a chronologically linear plot and instead relies on frequent flashbacks, Fitzgerald over and again returns to the idea that time has a beginning, middle, and end. Okay, this is a piece of evidence that I have. I am paraphrasing it and putting it in my own words and kind of summarizing what this author is saying. I still have to cite it because it's not just my thoughts. And again, in this paragraph, I'm following the Toulmin method. I have my claim, I have my evidence, and now I'm going to explain or give some analysis of what the author is trying to do to develop the theme through this. In doing so, he emphasizes that time cannot be repeated and you can only go back in time through nostalgic reminiscing. Okay, and notice here that I have a rhetorical verb here too. Okay, it's Fitzgerald emphasizes. My analysis or my explanation here needs to really focus on what the author is doing with the text, what the author is doing to develop that theme. I should be talking about what Fitzgerald is doing. I shouldn't be talking about what the characters are doing here. As Jeffrey Steinbrück notes, moments of happiness or triumph from the past can neither be recaptured nor repeated, and for that reason, seldom can they be forgotten. Okay, so here's my text evidence. Because I mentioned the author's last name as a way of the author's name as a way of introducing the quotation, I just need to put my page number in the parentheses here. I don't need to put his name again. The flashbacks of the story are used by Fitzgerald to emphasize the way in which the past only returns through memory. Okay, and again, my explanation here is focused on what Fitzgerald's doing. I have a rhetorical verb here to describe what his action is in the text here. Okay, I have he. I want to change this to Fitzgerald. Pronouns are a way of keeping yourself from repeating a name too much. Oh, I cannot spell. Gerald. Okay. Fitzgerald further, but I want to be clear with my pronoun usage too. Fitzgerald further illustrates this point through the use of seasons. So I have a transition here with the word further, and I have a rhetorical verb here that he's illustrating. What action is the author taking? The novel begins in spring and is filled with the hope of new beginnings, but it ends in winter as Nick imagines returning home. At the novel's beginning, though, even in the midst of a hopeful spring, Daisy and her friend Jordan seem unable to fully experience expectation, as Daisy asks Jordan what they will do for the afternoon or next several decades. Jordan responds, "Don't be morbid. Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall." Ironically, life does not begin again as the novel draws to a close. Rather, it ends with Gatsby's death, which Nick describes. He must have looked up at an unfamiliar sky through frightening leaves and shivered as he found what grotesque thing a rose is and how raw the sunlight was upon the scarcely created grass. The tone here is somber, demonstrating just how wrong Jordan is. Fitzgerald develops this imagery to expose the impossibility of returning to anything new again. Okay, so I have a bunch of text evidence here. I'm being really specific with that text evidence. And then I have my explanation here. Um, and again, my explanation focuses on what Fitzgerald is doing. So I have his name, I have a rhetorical verb, and then I connect it to the theme that I'm trying to argue is being developed in this text, the impossibility of returning to anything new again. I keep finding different ways of repeating this theme statement, but it still keeps coming back to my theme. Similar to the movement found in the seasons, so I have a transition here that's connecting to my previous paragraph. Fitzgerald also uses the geographical locations of the characters to highlight the challenge that comes with attempting to repeat the past. Through the novel, the characters are constantly moving. Okay, I'm going to skip through here, but again, I have some summary of the story. I have some text evidence from a literary critic, and then I keep using this to kind of um, support my argument. I come back to the text, okay, and I keep using rhetorical verbs to talk about what the author is doing. Okay. I'm trying to figure out what I should read to you. Okay, we'll read this paragraph here. Throughout his novel, Fitzgerald uses the concept of the past to highlight the contradictory way in which our history shapes us. Okay, again, I have rhetorical verbs, and I'm returning back to my theme here. The novel opens with Nick recounting his family history, one in which includes a great uncle who paid someone to fight for him in the Civil War. Fitzgerald immediately places his characters within the larger context of an American history. As the story progresses, allusions are made to various events and individuals in American history: Dutch sailors, Hopalong Cassidy, John Rockefeller, Columbus, and the fixing of the World Series. These allusions, and again, I'm summarizing information from another author, so I'm citing it, and I accidentally added a comma here. Don't add commas. Okay. These allusions are used to illustrate some of the darker aspects of American history, while also emphasizing that some of its more mythical qualities are simply that, a myth. As scholar Peter L. Hayes notes, Gatsby in particular consummately embodies the contradictory qualities of this country, are saying one thing while doing another, are clinging to myths that have little basis in reality. Okay, and I don't actually need my author's name here. At the novel's end, Fitzgerald most directly ties Gatsby with the history of America. Okay, I have this long quotation. When you have a long quotation, you need to indent it when it's longer than 3 lines. Gradually, I became aware of the old island here that flower. Oh, and when you indent like that, you do not need quotation marks, okay? Because the indentation kind of serves to show that you're using a quote. Gradually, I became aware of the old island here that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh green breast of the New World. And as I sat there, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out Daisy's light at the end of his dock. He had such a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close he could hardly fail to grasp it. But what he did not know was that it was already behind him, somewhere in the vast obscurity beyond the city. Okay, notice I also used some ellipses here to show that I was taking out words. In drawing this connection between Gatsby and America, Fitzgerald not only makes it clear that it was impossible for Gatsby to ever achieve any kind of dreams that were rooted in the past, but also suggests that the idealistic vision that America has for herself is equally impossible to achieve. The green flowering island is no more and has been replaced by overbloated mansions and valleys of dust. Okay, and again, I'm using this to have an analysis of what Fitzgerald is doing in the text to develop this theme. Okay, and then I have my conclusion. Through the character Jay Gatsby and his hopeless optimism that the past can be repeated, Fitzgerald illustrates that the past is squarely stuck in history, never to be truly never to be truly returned to again. The past is oftentimes idealized, but the reality is that our dreams of the past become the foul dust polluting our present. The structure of the novel, with its shifts between past and present, the frequent allusions to historical figures and events, the motifs connecting seasons with geography, all contribute to the development of this theme. In this novel, okay, so I'm repeating my thesis statement through here, and then I come back and summarize some of the main points that I have in this paper. In this novel, the past is always behind the characters, even when they keep trying to find ways to return back to it. It is an important lesson for each generation, as it always seems tempting to yearn for a previous time, a greener time, with wistfulness and longing. But as Fitzgerald's novel shows, life is crispest in the present. And again, I kind of had a play on words with this idea, that quote from Jordan Baker about being crisp in the fall. I was trying to be clever. And because I have made an edit, I have pushed my works cited down. So let's pull it back up. Okay, your works cited page should be on the next full page. Okay, so even if you finished your paper like up here, this all needs to be blank, and then you start here at the top. Your works cited should have works cited at the top, but not any extra spaces here. And then you should have the last names, and then you should have the second and subsequent lines indented. Okay, I hope all of this was really helpful to you. I know I've talked a lot and this is pretty long, but I wanted to be detailed enough that it would really be helpful so that you would understand kind of my thought process and what was going on, especially since I'm not in class with you right now. If you want feedback as you go, like you write a paragraph and you want feedback before you go on, that's what I'm here for. And if you want other feedback once you're done, just let me know. Thank you all for your work, and I hope this was helpful.